I'd like to call this Oconee County Council special meeting to orders 4:30, for Thursday. Let me start over. 4:30 on Tuesday, January 21st. Goodness. I'd like to amend the agenda to allow for public comment in this if council would see fit. But I'd like to keep it within the parameters of the same with the 4 minutes allowed. If council would allow that, I'd like to make that motion, and that would occur after the discussion regarding action items, which is on the agenda, item 3, if council would allow that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Root, is that clear enough?
That is, I'm not sure exactly where you wanted to put it. Right before now?
After, it would be, I'd like to put it after the discussion of action items, if that would be okay.
That's right.
And is that okay if we keep it within the 4 minutes for time?
It certainly is, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we do need a motion to go in executive session to receive legal advice related to matters relevant to increased building construction activity. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reconvene.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
No action was taken in executive session. We'll move into discussion regarding action items on building standards in Oconee County. And if somebody from council, so I'll open it up for discussion from council, and then we'll move forward to public comment discussion on that as well.
I make a motion that we direct the planning department, the building and codes department, and the legal department study impact fees and building codes changes for multi-family housing and come back directly to council.
Second.
I would like to, I guess, amend that. On the building codes, I guess we're on comment. The building codes changes, were you talking about from an inspection standpoint, or what were, just to define what that motion is?
I would like for them to come back to whatever they think needs to be changed.
But that's a state,
Okay, this could be, right. And if we needed to petition the state for a change, we could.
okay.
What we need legal to look at is the burden of extra police, extra fire engines, extra load on our infrastructure, roads, stuff that directly affects the taxpayers and the citizens.
With impact fees.
Yes, sir.
I'd be fine with the motion, but the building codes changes to me wouldn't be what we as county council or county officials, I think we need to look into how we can manage larger projects better, how we can help our building codes.
Okay, I changed the motion to, here again, for them to study how we can do that.
Okay. How we can, to inspect, like it through inspections?
Right, inspections or whatever building codes department comes back to
You want
us.
to restate that motion to be a little clearer? Is that, what help do you need on that, David, so we make sure we're not?
I think I understand. Mr. Elliott, tell me if I've got it wrong, but the motion is to direct the planning department, building codes department with the assistant legal department to study impact fees, building code implementation, and issues related thereto, and report back to full council with plans or needs to address multifamily construction. Yeah, I think is that about it?
That's correct.
I have a restate on the second.
Second.
Just want clarification that, the building standards are statewide, and that's what we are to enforce on there. And I do agree if there's something that, we see that we can do better, it's never a problem to talk to the state about that, or for any building official for that matter to do that. So, all in favor, or any other comments on that motion?
Are we talking about impact fees solely for multifamily
I would-
housing?
I would consider that 200 beds.
That's, as I understood it, and obviously full transparency is what we're doing, it's a good thing. I mean, this comes over from Clemson issue imposing a moratorium, and there may be spillover into the county, and there already is some of that, so the county wants to be prepared to address those issues. So what we're trying to do is be prepared for that. Clemson's threshold mark was a 200-bed development. We will look at it from that era, anchored around there, but we'll look at all aspects of it to see how it's been handled in other jurisdictions that are postured similarly to how we are. Impact fees, tax districts, how building code can be implemented, better. I've talked to you all in executive session on how it can be changed and have the limitations on the ability to change a statewide code that's meant to be uniform. But we'll address all angles, so that would be our approach to it.
Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay. At this time, if we'll move into public comment, and when you come up front, for those that haven't been here before, we are a micless system, so as you speak up here, we'll pick you up. And you'll have 4 minutes, and I'll keep the time up here. If council sees fit, we'll give you longer. So at this time, Ms. Patricia Walton, or Layton, sorry. I think it's Layton.
Layton.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, thank you. I'm with the Clemson's Wood Utilization and Design Institute, and we are a group of scientists and researchers at Clemson and educators in architecture, construction, sciences, and engineering, as well as forestry, that have worked very hard to implement, for example, building code changes in the 2021 code that will allow for more mass timber or heavy timber. This is a new building type. And in fact, Clemson has a brand new building that is one of those buildings in Oconee County. It's on the lake at the Snow Outdoor Fitness and Wellness Center. And if you're interested, we'd love to invite you or your building code inspectors or anyone to come and see it. The idea behind what we do at our university is to increase the use of wood in construction. We believe that it has a wonderful use. There are many, many wonderful aspects about using wood, as long as you use it properly and you know what you're doing and you follow the codes exactly. And my one rule when I teach my class is don't let it get wet. Don't leave it in standing water. And oh, by the way, you shouldn't leave it in water permanently. Stay dry. We think that there is an excellent quality for carbon sequestration for the economy of the state of South Carolina. The more we can use local wood in our buildings and to help with our landowners who are private forest landowners to actually increase the use or the property values they have and the revenue from their forest operations that they may have in their own pockets that feed then into your county dollars. So we believe it's a wonderful thing. It is one that, and you'll hear from Mr. Coates in a minute, but building codes are developed by agencies and people who are really worried about making sure that we have a minimum standard of quality or a standard of quality and safety that allows us to build, live in, work in, and occupy buildings that meet the standards we'd like to be. And those include everything from energy to vibrations to strength to impact resistance. And we at Clemson are working to make sure that we're doing that. There are some products that, I can't believe they're out on the market, but we don't usually sell those here in South Carolina. I was in Dallas recently and saw some of those, and I was kind of appalled. I wouldn't want to live in a house with a flimsy external siding on it, but not my choice, that's their choice. But I think the state of South Carolina is actually very forward-thinking in their adoption of building codes, of keeping up to date. We're not still using 2006 or 2009 codes, which some states in the U.S. are using. So I encourage us to adapt and adopt, and then to also have a wonderful supply of building code officials in our county, whether we hire them or whether we use a third party to supply some of those so that we can keep up with it. Building code officials are our best friend, our best way of making sure that our buildings are safe and they do last and are built well. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Paul Coates.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Coates. I'm with the American Wood Council. And the American Wood Council is the trade association that represents lumber and engineered wood product producers. I live in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm the Southeast Regional Manager. And my own background is building codes. So I just wanted this opportunity to introduce myself to the council and to the staff. And if there's any questions I can answer about building codes, I'm an engineer and my background is building codes. So part of my job is just to keep track of what happens at the state level. I actually cover 7 states. So I'm not always in South Carolina, but South Carolina has a very progressive system for building codes, very good system, actually. And so I just wanted to make myself available. If there were questions today, I didn't really know exactly what the topic would be. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time? No. So we got about 15 minutes left, so from a standpoint on council, I'll open it up to council member comments and anything that, any discussion that they have. The biggest reason, I guess, this meeting is in relation to the moratorium that Clemson has put on there. I attended the meeting, their strategic meeting, which I guess would be their moratorium group that they had, which was on January the 17th, just to sit in and listen to what their response was going to be for their growth. And the number one thing that came out of there is that they do want more housing options, more student housing options, but they want to try to figure out how they're going to exist with their residential area. So they identified several places of growth out in the area, not just in Clemson, not just in the city limits, but outside, and Oconee County was included in that matrix of growth. And obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of look and see where student housing growth is going to occur, which is going to be in that the Shallow Road area, the High Point, the pier area that's already there, as well as the Martin Creek. Isn't that what we decided? That area, as well as down that Wells Highway area because of the vicinity within Clemson. It was also notated in their study that there was additional 3,500 beds, and that needed in the next 5 years, and that includes everything that's currently in construction. That also includes anything that's in construction for the university student housing. So, the student housing projects are coming. And so we need to be, proactive in how we're maintaining our area to make sure that our permanent residents have the least impact on it, because that has seemed to be the biggest issue that Clemson has had. And that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up as well. They also talked about that student housing in Clemson is one of the biggest tax bases that Clemson has. So there's several residences that actually sit on that board that talked about they're glad that they have the property taxes they have because of what these housing projects have. So there's got to be a way to exist together. But those areas that have identified growth, everybody talks about traffic. To me, traffic's not the issue. The flow of traffic is the issue. And I think with that specific area, we need to work a little bit more with the state on correcting those areas before the growth gets there rather than after, because it seems like that's what happens. The city has 7.9% vacant land inside the city. So we don't have that issue in Oconee County, and certain areas of Pickens and Anderson County do. So it's common sense to understand that these projects are headed out that way. They elected to hire a third-party person. They have not come up with a budget of that yet, but expensive was the word that was used to, assess existing conditions, look at traffic patterns and transportation plan, and then have a master plan. A lot of these things is something that Planning Commission has worked on through the corridor study. And a lot of these things just need to start being implemented. So I just wanted to share those things that I had brought up, that when student housing has hit cities, like it's hitting in the city limits, there is kind of a knee-jerk reaction to think about what we need to do to stop growth. And to me, that's not our job up here to stop growth. Our job is to encourage correct growth. And that's kind of what I just wanted to kind of bring forward, what I had learned during that time period, because these areas are prime for growth, but they do, just like Mr. McCall stated, police and fire is a concern, because that does add to those areas on there. So that's something with impact fees and different things like that that we can put out there. So, but any other comments from council? Okay. What's your time period you think for having something back?
21st. I don't see why it would take, for us to have a general, hey, these are just a menu of things that you could potentially do. I don't think that would take us more than, I don't want to cut myself short. So let's say the second meeting in March.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll shoot for the first meeting in March.
Okay. And would that identify the need for additional building officials or things like that as we move forward?
Yeah, that's what my thinking is. These are all the things, these are the challenges we face. These are the ways we can combat those challenges. These are ways that have been proven effective in other jurisdictions, and then bring that to y'all.
The inspection process, if we have a plant, like a 300 or 400 bed come forward, we had talked when we went through the whole building codes and trying to figure out what we exactly wanted to do with that. We talked about not only what we have here, but also when we add these large project plans, we had the ability to broker out to that group. And are they still doing anything?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that opportunity would exist for council to do, or would that be administration to decide?
Generally, administrator can under $50,000.
Okay. Okay. So,
Y'all may want to revisit or visit the permit fees as we go into the budget cycle too. That will be one of the
There'll be
aspects
several
to consider.
options. We've already started working on those from last year's.
and we
aha
talked
moments.
about that, and that would be during strategic planning, we could talk about that as well. So that was kind of the next go. Okay. Any other comments from council? Need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.